Let's now head to South Africa, where the parliament has approved a bill that will criminalize hate speech and hate crimes 5 years since first being introduced. The National Assembly agreed to largely technical amendments made to the bill by the National Council of Provinces, including a reduction in the prison term for such crimes from 8 to 5 years. But not all parties were in favor of the bill, believing that it would stifle the freedom of speech and expression. Given previous judgments in hate speech matters, the Democratic Alliance's Werner Horn doesn't believe the Prevention and Combating of Hate Crimes and Hate Speech bill will pass the constitutional muster. The economic freedom fighters, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, says the bill is necessary to deal with racist incidents. In the meantime, South Africa has acquired a negative reputation of being associated with xenophobia following the unending killing of foreigners in the country. The most recent being the mob justice that left 7 people dead in Diepsloot. The country has recorded too many incidents of xenophobic crimes against foreign Africans on crimes in the country. Joining us from Blantyre to speak more on this is political analyst Mavuto Bamusi. Mavuto, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So what factors do you believe contribute to South Africa being associated with Afrophobia or xenophobia in some cases, particularly in light of recent incidents of violence against foreigners?
There are 3 critical factors that we must look at. The first one is the fact that South Africa finds itself within a region that is deep in poverty and where inequality is getting deep and wide. So the Southern Africa region, where South Africa is the hegemonic power, the powerhouse politically, but also a powerhouse economically. So South Africa continues to attract migrants. It is the main destination for migrants within the Southern Africa region. So Zimbabwe continues to be the #1 source of migrants that troop into South Africa. But the major causes for this traffic, #1 is deepening poverty as well as inequality. And when one factors in the Zimbabwe factor, it is also because of the sanctions that Zimbabwe sits on, the economic sanctions, which have been there for many years, since 2000. And this keeps driving many young people, women to cross the borders into South Africa. The second region, the second reason I would attribute this to the failure to generate jobs or to create employment. So Southern African region, the Southern African Development Community, SADC as it is called, sits on a massive unemployment crisis, especially as it is affecting young people. So like I said, Zimbabwe, but also Mozambique and Malawi are the 3 countries that are seeing many young people, women and others trooping out of their countries to South Africa because of the lack of jobs and the employment crisis. I'll also give you another example. Recently in Malawi, there have been young people being exported. There is a labor export that is happening from Malawi to Israel, such dangerous places, which is war-torn. But the final factor #3, is the fact that there is a politicization of racism, the politicization of migration, where President Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, cannot take decisive steps to fight xenophobia, to make sure that there is a decisive end to the racist attacks, which is primarily affecting Zimbabweans, Malawians, and South Africans.
So,
and Mozambicans.
These issues that you've mentioned, are they part of the root causes of the recent mob justice that we witnessed in Diepsloot? Because we're beginning to see a rise in the case of violence against persons, they are becoming victims. Is that part of the root cause? And when we continue to have situations like this, what implication do you think it will have in broader context, looking at violence against foreigners in South Africa?
Yes, indeed. The factors that I mentioned are the root causes: poverty, unemployment, but also political indecisiveness. But the consequences, the repercussions are that we are sitting on a time bomb where regional integration is failing. So all this is signaling the failure of regional integration, the failure of cultural integration, and the lip service that normally political leaders within the SADC region give to promoting human rights and ending violence. So the repercussions are huge, and ultimately we could signal the failure of economic integration, where Tanzanians will fear to travel to South Africa, and Zimbabweans will fear. So the inability to exchange human capital actually will be the death knell on the intentions to end poverty within the Southern African region.
So moving forward, Mavuto, what policy measures do you think the South African government can implement to actually address this issue of Afrophobia?
First of all, the South African government needs to stop the politicization. You see, the way the ruling African National Congress, ANC, in South Africa operates, it is as if it is lenient. It almost condones this kind of violence, except, of course, for the EFF. So we have seen the EFF taking a much more stronger stand position against xenophobia. But the long and short of it all is that the SADC region, the Southern African Development Community leadership, need now to be decisive, take a strong position against South Africa on xenophobia, but also make sure that Zimbabwe itself is unshackled from the sanctions which it faces, because it is the economic inequality and the poverty out of the sanctions that Zimbabwe is facing that is driving people out of Harare, out of Blantyre, out of all parts of Zimbabwe into South Africa.
Mavuto, Bamusi, thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you for having me.